I feel like I'm late to the party a little bit. It took me a while, I guess, to find interest and like true curiosity in what's happening. And the more that I dive in and the more that I learn, it just seems kind of like the new version of like the Oregon Trail, which is like we're all pioneering and there's some risk, there's a lot of uncertainty, but the amount of this new version of freedom that kind of comes along with it, as well as like financial opportunity, just seems like I don't want to miss that. So I'm trying to learn as much as possible and just try to spread that information as best I
But
can.
we're all on that same journey. So if anybody tells you they know what's going on or where it's going, they're lying. We don't. It's all new. It's
Hmm.
the fastest adoption of any technology in all human history. So the internet was previously the fastest adoption of any technology. This is growing at twice the speed. So currently there's 300 million users of crypto worldwide. It's growing at 185% a year. So that means by next year, you're at 700 million people.
Whoa.
And then the year after that, you're at 1.5 billion people. So what's amazing about it is, yes, it's amazing the technology and Web3 and all of the power it gives back to the individuals and all of the great stuff. But the big difference here is by owning the tokens, you're being part of the network as well. So you can not only get the benefits of this new system in a social sense, but you get it in an economic sense too, because it goes up in value. It's like finding Facebook back in 2010 and being given shares in Facebook that everybody who used Facebook had shares. It would have made everybody rich.
Hmm.
This is what this is doing because you get the utility of all of this and you get the financial benefits.
Yeah, and I think a lot of hesitation for people that maybe haven't adopted it yet is just ignorance, right? And we kind of run away from things that we don't know because we don't want to look stupid. So that's why I'm here, is to look stupid for everybody, for my audience, and just to learn. But I think it starts with understanding like what is money, and I've heard you talk a little bit about this when it comes to like currency debasement, because what I was always taught was you save money. You just put it into an account and you watch that number get bigger, and then hopefully whenever the day comes, if it comes that you don't want to work, that number will support you for the rest of your later years. And then the more that I'm learning, I'm like, well, that doesn't sound like a very solid plan, and that's also not risk free. Like everything comes with risk. So I would love if you could kind of explain I guess like currency debasement and why maybe investing is a better idea than just hoarding your money in a savings account.
Yeah. So the I think the best example to use is for the millennial generation. So anybody's kind of under the age of 35, say 25 to 35. So most millennials are now in their early 30s. And in their early 30s, they look at the world and they look at their income, and you can't buy a house.
Mhm.
And the stock market is expensive. It's at all-time record valuations, and the bond market and all of the investment world is incredibly expensive. And so you're stuck where, okay, you start saving a few $100s a month. The problem is there's no interest rates on your money. So it doesn't grow. But meanwhile, the cost of everything goes up more. So you're actually getting poorer. So you have to save more and more money, and it becomes almost impossible. So what is the factors playing out here? Why is this becoming so difficult? Well, we used to have higher interest rates, but because of this huge baby boom population who are retiring, plus the amount of debt in the system, interest rates have fallen for 3, 4 decades now to now zero. So nobody gets any interest on their money, but we still have inflation. So the normal cost of goods normally has been running at like 2% a year. Doesn't sound a lot, but over time, you know, over a 10-year period, that ends up being 30% or so of your money, that your purchasing power that you've lost. So unless your income goes up or you save more and more and more every year, you're kind of behind the game.
Mm.
But then there's a bigger thing. So right now we're seeing high inflation. We're seeing inflation at 8%. So then you're really behind the game unless your salary goes up enough and you can start saving more. So everyone's behind the game. But then there's another crazy thing happened when interest rates hit zero and we got to 2008, that famous financial crisis. the central banks started using something like the Federal Reserve, being the central bank of the United States, started using a different way of trying to stimulate economic growth and save the banking system. And that was called quantitative easing, which is a fancy word to say we're going to print more money. And when you print more money, you devalue the money. So to put it in layman's terms, if you are really thirsty and somebody says, well, I've got a bottle of water, I'll sell it to you for $5, you'll pay $5.
Mhm.
If somebody gives you 1,000,000 bottles, it's worth nothing to you. In fact, you'd pay somebody to get rid of it because it's cluttered up your entire house. So things that are, if there's too much of something, it becomes valueless or less valuable.
Mhm.
So one Mona Lisa is valuable, 1,000,000 Mona Lisas, not valuable. And that's what's going on with money. They're debasing it, which means that they are lowering the value. Now, you don't see it very easily. All you see is that these asset prices keep going up. Every time they do this quantitative easing magic, the price of the stock market goes up, and the price of housing goes up, and the price of crypto goes up. And everyone's like, well, I can buy less of it now suddenly, but my income hasn't gone up. That's debasement. So you're now poorer and you didn't realize how it happened and you don't understand it. And it makes people angry because they don't understand why they can't get ahead. You know, wages over the last 50, 60 years haven't gone up. And the reason being is the millennials are in the workforce with their parents. So you've got the two biggest cohorts of people ever competing for jobs. And then there's globalization, i.e. Chinese workers and Indian workers and Mexican workers. And then you've got technology. You've got to beat the robots and AI who are taking everybody's jobs. So wages don't go up very much, but the cost of all these assets keeps going up because people are devaluing the dollar. So that's why it's so hard to get ahead. And that forced me to look at, okay, how do we get around this? What can we do that's more sensible than what we were told? Because our parents were all told save money, but they had 7%, 8% interest rates. So it adds up pretty quick. But this doesn't work. So what I did is I started looking at all of these assets and dividing them by the size of the central bank balance sheet. So how many, you know, how basically how much the Fed have printed. And what you found is the stock market didn't really do much. The S&P 500, the property market didn't do much. So they were just basically keeping in line with what was going on. So they protected your money, but you didn't make money. You didn't get richer. But when you looked at two things, they were the only things that made the real difference. One was technology stocks, because we live in this technological age of incredible change. And so those things tend to do well. But the thing that beat them all was crypto. Crypto did extraordinarily well because what you've got is some forces at play. One is there's digital scarcity, so you can't print more of it. So if something is being printed more of, it goes up in value versus a thing being printed. So that's great. But the blockchain technology was like a call option on the future financial system and the future of the internet. So you've got something that looks like a tech stock with adoption and has the safety of, let's say, gold. So that became like the holy grail. And then, the speed of adoption, everything else is what's driven the price rises. So that's why crypto's been such a good savings vehicle. I made a video on this several years ago that's probably had 3 or 4 million views now on YouTube, about the retirement crisis. And back then, I probably did this in 2015 or so. I said, if you are a 30-year-old, your answer is to start saving in crypto, because that is the big opportunity, because the upside is so much larger. So yeah, that's the only way I see it that you can get ahead. Or start your own business is the other way.
Right. Yeah. And that's so interesting because a lot of the critics, when it comes to crypto, kind of make it seem like it's this giant scam that just hasn't revealed itself.